Hello, everyone, and welcome to Evolving Enneagram's interspiritual podcast. I'm Reverend Nhien, founder of Evolving Enneagram, and I am so excited to be in the midst of this Transformation by Type interview series in which we are interviewing Enneagram professionals around the globe, not about their professional practice, but about their spiritual practice, their spiritual journey with the Enneagram. So I am delighted to have with me here today a friend, a colleague, and also in the last year, a member of our Evolving Enneagram community, Rania Hussein. She is an internationally accredited Enneagram professional. She's the co-founder of Wesal, which is like a wellness hub that's rooted in the Enneagram, that does all things Enneagram, right? For individuals as well as organizations. And also she has presented at a couple global conferences in the past. So I'm just super delighted to have you here, Rania. So hello, first of all. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. So context, how we actually met in person was when I flew all the way to Cairo for the regional IEA conference there and had the opportunity to present there, and you were also a presenter. But my understanding is that you actually had, quote, met me even before then. Could you share a bit about that? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I had been eagerly taking part in the IAA monthly webinars that used to happen over the past couple of years. And there was on one of the webinars, you were there co-presenting, if I remember correctly, with the two gentlemen from Egypt, Dr. Khalid al-Sherbini and Abdurrahman. It was on spirituality, if I recall. I can't recall the date, but I remember I was there. Okay. And for me, it was like, okay, interesting. Who's this nice lady there? Let me see what is coming. And I can tell you that when you started talking, for me, it was like an instant hook happened. Was like, I think there is something there. I have no clue what it is. It's not something rational at all, and it's not emotional either. But deep down, I knew there is something more here, but I don't know what it is.
Wow.
Yeah. And after that, I think by that time, we were already started working on the preparations for the regional conference in Egypt 2022. And I was part of the organizing committee, and I was handling speakers committee. So who was in charge of contacting all the speakers? It was me. So this is where we started getting in contact again about the conference, coming to Egypt, and then I met you in person. And then it didn't stop there. And then I met you again in person in the IAA Nordic. Okay. And I wasn't planning to go there actually. So it all happened. It was like it unfolded. It wasn't on the plan from the beginning.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. And yeah, I feel that alignment and synchronicity of our journeys as well. And now we see each other once a week,
Yes.
online in these contemplative Enneagram groups that we host. So what a blessing. And so I love that you started there, because where I want to go back to is I'll first say, so Rania identifies as an Enneagram Type 1. Right.
Yes.
So this is very significant, doing things a little bit more via your gut, right? Like a little less from a sort of controlled place. But let's just go back to the beginning. I'd love to hear your journey of discovering your type on the Enneagram. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I started my journey with the Enneagram back in 2017. But before that, I would say I was being prepared, kind of being prepared, without me knowing that I was being prepared. So in 2016, I started sort of, being fed up of how things are. And I couldn't really say what was wrong. I mean, there wasn't something tangible. Life was going on well. Kids are okay. Hobby is fine. Work is going fine. So why is it that I don't feel content on the inside? Was a big question for me. And was actually, this state used to make me feel scared, because was like, why aren't you content? You have all the reason in the world to be content. I mean, you're successful at work, everything is okay around you. So where's this feeling coming from? But I knew there was something inside that is not resting, that is not finding its place, that is not content. And there was a certain heaviness that was felt there in the heart. But I did not know what was this. And I certainly didn't understand anything or know anything about the Enneagram, not at all. So by coincidence, by mere coincidence, I got to meet Dr. Khaled Sherbini. Okay. It so happens that he's a colleague from university, which I did not know that he was a colleague there. I mean, I met him years later. But it so happened that he was organizing a retreat, a mindfulness retreat. I was like, what's that? I'm interested, but I don't know what's that. What's in it for me? But there was a calling there. I knew I needed to go there. And I'm very thankful that I followed this calling.
Wow.
Yeah, it started from there. I went on this retreat not knowing anything, really. Zero, Nhien, zero. And to me, during the retreat, it was like a 4-day retreat in Sinai. And we went up climbing Mount Sinai and did meditations and sharings and unpackings. And things for me was like, what's this? What's happening here? And I would talk to myself, it's like, are you crazy? What are you doing? This is totally out of your comfort zone. You're talking to people that you don't know. You're sharing things about yourself with people that are total strangers to you. What is happening? Stay in your comfort zone. I mean, I remember the voice very vividly. Wow. Stay where you are. Stay there. This is safe. You know it all. But I couldn't. I couldn't. And I remember at that time, it was like, oh, okay, so what did you study? And I was like, nothing. What do you mean? What did I study? Nothing. And I started simply sharing what I was thinking, how I felt, how things were for me at that time. I've always had an interest in reading in philosophy, psychology, history, since I was a little child. And I was the odd one in the family. So it's like, my brother even had a nickname for me and used to call me Socrates. Okay. So I was like, okay, I understand I'm kind of different here, but it's like, I like this. And I found myself there somehow.
Wow.
Yeah. So it basically started from this. And then I heard about the Enneagram. What is the Enneagram? It's like, come join to know more about it. So this is where it all started.
So the retreat didn't have Enneagram in it, but the retreat is the entry point for you into getting to know Dr. Khaled. And by the way, for those listening, check out Transformation by Type video Type 5, where I actually interview Dr. Khaled about his personal journey as well. And he mentions Mount Sinai. So that's a very important place. Of course, it's a holy site. Yeah. So you got this inner calling, this nudge through being unsettled, if you will, through and so you would become even more unsettled by getting out of your comfort zone and going. So it's almost like entering a doorway into another world. It sounds like you were a professor, and here was a world that was just more mysterious, it sounds like, and unknown to you. And when you say like all of this stuff is new, do you mean like, was it meditation that was new? What was new compared to what your life was like?
Yes, meditation was new. I mean, I had always heard about it, but I wasn't really practicing it. So it was new for me to practice meditation. And also, when they started, it's like, I remember this time we were going down from Mount Sinai, and there was a very beautiful tree, a very ancient, beautiful big tree. And the entire group were like, our lovely tree Malak. They had given her a name. They had visited her before. And there they went hugging the tree. And for me, I was like, okay, what's this exactly? didn't understand anything. It was like I went along with them. Come and hug Malak. Okay, let's try and hug Malak. So, but I was like always looking, I'm like, these weirdos, what's this? I don't really know what I'm doing.
And now, if you knew, I love hugging trees. This is my thing. So how
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah. So this is
And
your work. It's
yes, and several things in this retreat were like, it's like for me, it was very clear that this is a calling. This is like a clear wake up call for me to stop, look around, look inside, look somewhere different than where you are looking, because it's not getting you to a place where you are settled and rested.
right.
So I would be sitting there in a meditation on Mount Sinai. We all of us are meditating, eyes closed, everything. And all of a sudden I hear my name being called out loud. Really, Nhien, I mean, it was like it's
Wow.
as if somebody's sitting next to me. Okay. It's like Rania, like this. And I was like, is Dr. Khalid calling me out because there is something that I did wrong? So, so I open my eyes and I look, and everybody around me is still in their meditation.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like, what's this?
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. And then I remember we went and visited the monastery at St. Catherine Monastery.
Mm.
And walking down the monastery, I was hearing voices as if they were prayers, although it was not the time for prayer, but I could hear them. Standing and leaning against the wall of the monastery, I could feel certain vibrations, energies out there, coming there, out of the wall. To me, it was like a shocking and an invasion of my tangible world, sensory world,
Yes.
probably in a way that I can relate to, because I cannot deny that I heard a sound.
Right.
Okay. I cannot deny that I felt something when the sensation when I put my hand there. So it came to me probably through the language I can better relate to.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah.
And it made me stop a lot. It was like, what exactly happened to me on that journey tells me there is something there, which again, I don't have a clue what it is.
Right. Right. And for background for others, I would love to hear about your religious practice up until then, right? Because I imagine that this shifted it, and that there could be a difference between the religious practice and the spiritual awareness or awakening. I'd love to hear a little bit about that. Yeah.
Very much so. So it's like I'm a practicing Muslim. Okay. So before that, I went on the journey of being, I wanted to do everything right. Exactly right. As it is asked of us, I will do it. If it says 1, 2, 3, I'll do 1, 2, 3, and maybe 4 just in case, to be, on the safe side, following the rules, following everything. And in Islam, like in other religions as well, probably there are like different schools in
Yeah.
it. Okay, so it's like from like Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, like that. So in Islam, we have the same thing as well. And it so happened for me that in 2008, I relocated with my family to Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia is where the holy city of Mecca and Medina are. And these two cities are of great importance to us as Muslims. This is where the pilgrimage happens. This is where the Kaaba is located in Mecca. Okay. So back then, I went on the pilgrimage journey twice. I used to go plenty of times to the Kaaba and pray there and have
Wow.
my prayers, supplications, and everything there. And it was beautiful. I don't say it was not, it was beautiful. But I would say there was a different meaning that wasn't still accessible to me.
Mm.
There is a certain depth that maybe I hadn't grasped really at that time. So I was doing everything like the French say, comme il faut. Okay. And there were spiritual moments definitely there. Okay. But I noticed that the harder I tried to follow, all the rules and all the things that were asked to do, it did not bring me into a softer space in me. It did not bring me into a more settled place. It brought me into a more unrest. So it's like I would tell my kids, for example, you need to pray. Now, as Muslims, we should pray 5 times a day. So it's like I would go and tell them, you need to pray. And when they didn't go to pray on the time where they were supposed to do it, I was getting angry. And I was like, certain resentment grew inside of me. And I remember this moment where I was like, God, I'm really getting to be very harsh with my kids, while I can't see this would bring them any closer to the practice I want them to follow. Why is this happening? If I am following my faith as I should, or doing things as I should, then why aren't the fruits of it happening? It's like, why I'm getting to be harsher, and I'm getting to be, the resentful is coming up higher. And later on, I discovered I wasn't really following the faith. I mean, I was following it, yes, as in within the framework.
Yes, the form.
The form, exactly, but not the core,
The
not the
spirit
core
of
of it.
it.
The spirit of it, the soul of it
Yeah.
was not there. So this for me was like, I didn't like me at this point.
Yeah.
It was like, no, this is not how I want to be. And then another incident happened in my life where it was like, I call it a slap on the face, and it made me really wake up. My dad got sick all of a sudden, and I wasn't here in Egypt. He was rushed to the intensive care, and all of a sudden I traveled back quickly to see him, and within 10 days he passed away. And what I saw there, he was not really, I mean, he was a practicing Muslim also, and I would say he got the core of it, while I was more at the form. And we had our disagreements, okay, about, and he is an Enneagram Type 8. So we imagine what happened between us, yeah? So seeing the people around him while he was sick, the amount of people coming, visiting him at the hospital, really saying how much he had an impact on their lives, was for me like, and here you were judging your dad that he was not following the forms, the rules. And it's like, not good. This will not end good. And here you are. You see it, you practice it, you come in contact with it, you experience that it's ending actually on a very nice note. It's like all these people praying for him and everything. So this shook me a lot at the core, really.
Yeah, profound. Did this happen before or after you knew the Enneagram?
Before, long before.
So yeah, so it started to shake your foundations, and I would say your Enneagram type foundations
Very
that
much so.
allowed you to be open to another way.
Yes. And this shifted me a bit away from the quote unquote traditional way of doing things into more, I found more rest in Sufism.
Yeah.
So I started exploring this road then.
Oh, okay. So that already began to open you. Therefore, by the time that retreat with Dr. Khaled was there, you were a little more open than you might have been in the past to that.
You can say preparation work was already done.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. Something on the ground level was already being put as a base. It wasn't new. It wasn't rejected. It wasn't, I'm afraid of it. No, I was resting there already and knew that, okay, this is where I feel more comfortable.
Amazing. Yeah. So then when you found out about being a type 1, how did that support your journey from there forward?
It was a big ouch at the beginning because through the journey, I actually came to understand that I wasn't really following my faith. I was following my ego.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's my interpretation. So Allah was an interpretation, my ego's interpretation of my ego. It's like, this is how it should be. This is how it is. So it has nothing to do with the divine. It has all to do with my perception of it,
Wow.
my own filters,
Yes.
what the divine is, of what Allah is, what I understand about him. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hear this in a lot of type one's journeys of awakening, that what you thought was objective, i.e., truth, is actually subjective. My perception of
Yes.
truth, that I am making the truth for, so, for
Yeah.
all people, right? Yeah. So that is often a rude awakening, right, into the knowing. And so from there forward, what was it like to be, what practices helped you? What was it like to begin to soften and find some peace, right?
For me, the understanding I gained through the Enneagram, this thing about having a type, how the type structure works, what happens there, just adding clarity in this respect, whether about myself or about others around me, made a big, big difference. Because for me, I'm always why. The question why makes a big deal in my life. So the Enneagram gave me the why. Okay, so now I could understand, I could rest how things are, really are, okay, that it's all different lenses of perception, that it's all different defense mechanisms, that it's all, I started understanding about conscious mind, subconscious mind, ego, essence. It's as if the pieces of the puzzle started being rearranged, form a picture that is clearer.
Wow. Wow.
And I usually say about ones is that they have inside of them a built-in self-correction mechanism. So it's like when I see it, I don't insist anymore. But I didn't see it before.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's profound. Yeah. So, do you have any examples or stories on your journey that you feel called to share here today? This is an example of maybe something you do differently. Because of
Well, sure. At the beginning of the journey, I mean, understanding is something, getting it out there in practice is totally different. So, and the ego is very smart. So, yeah. So it's like, now I understand about the idea and everything. Okay, so let me correct it. But who did I try to correct? Again, outside. Again, outside. So my husband is a 7. So he was like, oh my God, what happened there between us? It's like, it's an ongoing entertainment. And I would say that my relationship with him took an unusual path when I understood about the Enneagram. Because for me, we were married because we were in love, not because it's like, it wasn't an arranged marriage. So it wasn't like, this guy that I didn't know and my parents told me he's a good guy for you. No, it was not like that.
Wow.
So, and the first years of my marriage, I would say the first maybe 10 to 12 years, they were super nice. Everything is nice, fine, everything. And then the years in between, another 8 years in between, it was a roller coaster. It was a cycle of up and down and up and down and up and down. And it came a moment where it was like, I can't live like this anymore.
Yeah.
And being a sexual subtype, I can't just be there in a relationship because he's a good man or because he's the father of my kids or he's a good father. I couldn't.
You need,
I tried, but I couldn't. I need the connection.
yeah.
I need it. So again, I was not happy. And I was like, okay, what should I do about that? So this taught me a lot about the shift inwards. It's like, you're not fixing him.
Oh.
No, because certainly I tried.
Yes, sure. Yeah. Woo. The shift inward. That just,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
felt that. Yeah. Yeah.
The moment this happened, so it was like, it's me. Okay. I
Mhm.
started understanding about my energy. How is my energy being perceived
Mhm.
outside? Because as a one, I wouldn't say something wrong. I wouldn't do wrong deeds or acts, but we were still drifting apart. So it's like, what's happening? It
Mm.
seemed like the harder I tried, the more apart we got.
Mm.
And I wasn't happy
Mm.
at all with that.
Yeah.
And I came actually to a stage where I thought, that's it, I'm walking out of this marriage and it's not working. But then I couldn't do that as well.
Mm.
Because sitting with myself, I had to get into my heart.
Mhm.
So it's like, and getting into my heart, it was like, you know what? I don't want to leave that man. I'm actually in love with that man. I, I would like just to have the relation back, but I don't want to go out of the relationship, but I don't know what to do. And it felt like stuck, totally stuck.
Yeah.
And bit by bit, turning this shift inward and working on this person here,
Yes.
things starting, it was as if there was a knot and then it started loosening bit
Mm-hmm.
by bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So in oneness, like there can often be a very, well, I want to say two different things. One is, as you were sharing about your relationship to your religion,
Mhm.
you can feel the same sense of, I was strict about the outer form and the
Yes.
rules of it being right. And when I'm out there and my energy is out there, it's not dropped into the softness of my heart. Whereas it sounded like in spirituality, there's not the rigidity that tries to create rigidity out there, but a softening that starts from the softening of the heart in there. And I feel that sense of parallel, in your relationship to your husband, about that correction is the kind of like a forcing of a rigidity, right? Out there, a way things need to be.
Let me tell you how it should.
And I know, I just, right,
Yeah,
as one,
of course.
I've really thought about it. And I'm a philosopher too. And I've analyzed it, right? And yes, and that's such a different place, right? And I got to tell you, because I have a lot of oneness, there's this quote that I read years ago: would you rather be right or be happy? And I was very confused by the quote. I'm like, well, being right makes me happy. Like,
I
how
mean,
can you be happy if things aren't right?
3 years back, I would have told you, be right, of course. Be right, of course.
Yes.
Of course. But now I would tell you, no, be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this was what I was searching for. Little did I know. But even when I use it in the way I explain, I always say there was unrest, I was unsettled, I was not content.
Uh-huh.
I never said anything else about not being right, not being good, not being whatever. No, it was something inside knew what I needed, but I didn't know it. The small I didn't know it.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So I'm very curious. I see a lot of parallel for myself in the way our Enneagram type impacts our relationship to everything, to
Mhm.
God, to Allah in your case, right? And it is like, for instance, when type ones come into my groups, as you well know, it's often the case that I'm like, okay, try to share before you've prepared your share, right? And even the paradigm of inner work can be a challenge, right? Because, the one will take it on and say, oh, yes, I will work for God. Like I will work to fix myself, which is such a different paradigm from, oh no, what if I open to the awareness of being already beloved, already whole, already perfect in that sense, right? So I'm curious to know about how your relationship will both to yourself, but also even in a way your relationship to this spirit has changed as a result of this Enneagram informed work. Yeah.
Well, at the beginning, of course, I could not relate at all to this idea of we are already perfect, we are already good. So it's like, what do you mean? So I stopped doing anything to improve, and it doesn't seem right. It doesn't sound to me right. I couldn't do that. And it was still these, within the inner world of the one is a very, very harsh critic.
Yes.
So it doesn't leave you easily. Not at all. Has a very loud voice, very harsh, and it's, for me, it's literally here. So it's like nothing really gets past here. Nothing gets expressed, done, whatever, unless it passes through this censorship channel first.
Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I knew I wanted to be more content. I knew I wanted to be more impulsive. I wanted to be more organic. It's like just what you feel, because I knew there was something inside there that is not seen out there, and I can't express it because there's something stopping it. Why can't I express it?
Yes.
And it was, by that stage, it was like, as if there were guards on every part in my body. It's like holding it in tight. What if you say something and then you look stupid? What if you say something and then you look silly? What if you say something and then it turns out to be wrong? What if you say something and then you offend someone? It's not really proper to offend someone. So we're like, a lot inside. It's like, give yourself a break.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting. But it's also, the thing is that it's very scary.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing I know.
Right. Right.
So as much as I wanted to get out of this territory, it wasn't happening. And then something else started sinking in, that it's not how hard you try to do it. You need to be it. And this is a big difference. So when this understanding was clear and I came in direct contact with it, I really can't explain it in words, but it so happens that it's experiential in a way. So it's like life puts me in situations or with people in relationships where I get to experience the thing. When I get to experience it, I come in direct contact with it. There is a sense of knowing beyond doubt. So it's like, you can say whatever you want.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Buy into it anymore.
Right. Right. So there are a few things I want to highlight that you described that is so powerful. One is, as I journey with individuals in this path of dying daily, dying daily to who we thought we were, right? Like the spiritual path of that, like inner death. There is, you mentioned the fear. The fear is not just in the type 6, it's in all of us. Like when the ego wants a job, like, it wants a job. And before, it had the primary job. It was like the CEO of the company, and now you're saying, sit down.
Yes.
And it's frantic and it's running around, and it's going to get louder and try to tell you how important it is and why you must listen. And for those, again, I know there are people who do transformational work that isn't spiritually based, but for me, the spiritual core that I see is what you described. It is like a sense of something bigger than yourself.
Yes.
A presence, a grace that comes in and softens that, right? Because if you go from the inside and you just fight that inner critic, that it almost strengthens it, right? There's just there and it's battling your mind, right? As opposed to like what you described, that lifting. And for those who are listening and not watching, you know, Rania kind of moved her hand from the above her head kind of down into her being, right? Like a settling in of this, of something like grace, right? That supports the journey. Yeah, it's profound.
Really hard to describe, but I can see you are getting what I'm saying, but sometimes the language falls short. It's like I can't give you a list of like do 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not like that.
Right.
It's not like that. But I would say know about your type, educate yourself, go on the path, okay? But it's not a list of things, of checkboxes that I have to do, and then I'm there. It doesn't happen that way.
Right, right. Especially good advice for fellow type ones, you know, that it isn't. And that's part of the scariness of it, right? Because if it was a list, like you'd knock it out, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Like you said earlier. 5 just in case, you know, like you just add to your own list. And so that spaciousness, but that like it allows something more organic and authentic. And what you described is almost like the doing of you and the earning versus the being, you know, the shift into that. Yeah. Yeah. So has your knowledge of the Enneagram, well, actually, I want to go back to this allowing yourself space to be. I want to hear a little bit more about the gifts. You said earlier when you did your religious practice, you didn't see the fruits.
Yes.
I would love to hear about the fruits of your practice now. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the ironic thing is that you don't lose the qualities that you have, but you're able to let them flow as opposed to do them, you know. It's like, so yeah, I'm very good with structure, I'm very good with setting a process, drafting policies, correcting things, improving things, organizing. These are all good things, sure, but there is much more than that behind that. There is a depth to that. So it's like when I get caught in this, it all becomes about, again, the form and the structure and how to fix things, because then I'm irritated and I can't really live with the chaos. But when I'm not in this space, it happens magically, Nhien. It's like I'm in a place and things start falling in place without me doing anything. It's just I'm being there. So it's like my energy somehow does the magic for me without me doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like I've heard it a lot from people around me, is like when you are around, we feel like we know what to do here and there, and we do it. It's like we don't have to be urged to do it.
Yeah.
And there is this sense of more of acceptance and openness to what you have to offer, not coming out of a restrictive place. It's coming out of a place of caring, and people can sense it.
Wow.
I care about showing you something that might change the way you do things, and it can improve things. But then I'm not forcing it on you.
Right.
No, it doesn't come from that space. It comes from the space of, I care to show you something.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
It
the
has
heart,
it has heart in it. Yes.
heart, yeah, it's like heart comes online, and it's like all of a sudden the arms open up, and
yes, very, very different stance. It's almost like your posture in the world has changed. Right. Right. And
this
realistic. Yeah.
by everyone. It's like, yeah, give us more of that, okay?
Yes.
Secure, we feel supported, we feel held.
Yeah.
Come on, come on, come on.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. There are a few things you said that I just love. I mean, one of them is this notion of like, we don't change our Enneagram type. And that there's a gift at every point on the Enneagram. And what I felt when you were talking is, again, using your analogy of like the outer and the form over the inner, the interior, the softness and the essence. It felt like the old you was much more commanding, directing the form out there. But it's almost like by you softening back so that you're moving toward people isn't directive, right? But you naturally are imbued with structure. like it's almost like you walk into the room and all the pieces reorganize themselves without your effort because of who you are. And even when it sounds like what has been added when you talked about the shift from, oh, this is the only truth, to, oh, there are many perspectives, has created a humility in your approach to people where you're not assuming that they need to take on your advice. But if they're willing, you are most certain to have advice. if they're, but there's this gentleness that allows people to choose it rather than be commanded by it. That feels more like love, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you get more of what you wanted in the first place, right? And not only is there probably more order in the outer, like what you want, like people actually doing their things, and they feel empowered in doing it, right? But when you're doing it from that place, you haven't abandoned, the inner critic hasn't shut down the heart. You've let yourself move from there in a way where that doesn't push it down to get the job done. It brings it out in support of the job. That's what I hear.
Well, instead of telling you, well, you're only criticizing and we're never good enough, we never do anything good enough. Okay, this was what I used to get before. And believe me, this used to hurt a lot. When I used to get this feedback, it hurt a lot because it was not the intention.
Yes.
It was never the intention.
Yes.
But I wasn't seeing how it's coming across to others. As now, like, tell us how, because you do it so beautifully. So it's like, tell us please how to do it. And it's like, thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you for taking the lead on that. Thank you for correcting this. So instead of back off.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah. What a softer world, and more connected. And as I understand it, the organization that you co-founded is about connection. And
Yes.
so what a beautiful tie-in to that as part of your journey. Yeah. So as we come to a close in this time, I would love to hear, it's very tricky to ask a one for advice, but if you do have advice, it's not the only way, it's just a suggestion for the new one. I mean, who's newer and maybe in that place of fear, like what's possible? Can I really let go? Like what's your advice to the newer one on the journey?
For the one specifically,
Yes.
I would say hang in there.
Mm.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. It's so bright, you cannot miss it, but you need to hang in there. You need to remove the roadblocks on the path one by one while being very gentle and patient towards yourself first. Because if you cannot do it with yourself, you're not getting any further. And you cannot certainly give it to others if you cannot give it to yourself.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, beautiful. And yeah, and I keep getting that image of you describing that censor, that inner critic, and just that sense of like, okay, well, there are other voices in the room. So this voice, can have its say, but it can sit down, and maybe there's a voice of compassion and of self-compassion.
Voice never goes away. It is still there, but instead of that big, It's that big.
Yeah.
Instead of very harsh, it's now gentler, but always there. It's
Yeah.
always.
Yes. And I think that's a very, very important point for folks to hear, because I think that, one's tendency for correction is like, once they find the Enneagram, well, I will just eliminate this inner critic because it's wrong. Now I found out that what I thought was the best thing is the worst thing. And now let us obliterate it.
A sure way for it to win it.
Yes.
Good. It
Right. Absolutely. Beautiful. So I'm curious if you have, in your spiritual practice or personal practice, if you have a special quote or poem or prayer that you feel called to share in this moment with us.
There is actually something in my practice every day. We were again asked to sort of on a daily basis. And here is where I believe in every faith, we were given guidelines, but we misread how to be with it. So it's like you're advised that every day you have your own time where you do something called zikr or remembrance, okay? And during that time, it takes up to 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe something like that. Twice a day is good to do, but minimum once a day would be good. And at that time, you start, it's some forms of like prayers that you say. And of course, it can turn into form. I did it, and I did it 100 times on my rosary. I already did. But then it's form.
Yes.
Then the fruits don't happen.
Yes.
Okay? But if you start really doing it mindfully, really feeling, dropping in and feeling what you are really saying, a big guide on the way. And out of this collection, there is one specific prayer that whenever I say it, it feels like, like somebody is holding my heart, like if I'm being held in a way. Like even when I start saying the praise, I want to get to this one. I want to get to this one because when there's this feeling of bliss that comes with it. I tried to look up the translation, of course, because in Arabic it's, and I hope the translation can give the same meaning like in Arabic, but it's one that says, "O ever living, O self-subsisting and supporter of all, by your mercy, I seek help. Rectify for me all of my affairs, and don't leave me depend on myself, even for the blink of an eye." This is very dear to my heart, very, very dear to my heart. And whenever I say it, and of course, I would say in the original script in Arabic, it's much stronger. Like I don't feel it if I say it in English, not at all. But in Arabic, because it's my mother tongue,
Right.
It gets really in.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would love if you wanted to offer it to us in Arabic as well. If you,
yeah, I can say that.
Okay. So,
يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك أستغيث أصلح لي شأني كله ولا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين. It brings tears to my eyes when I say it in Arabic.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have had this special time together. I feel blessed by your tears as well as your prayer. So thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you everyone for listening. And yeah, if all you get from this is tears of love, I think it will have been a good session. So see you next session, next episode. Hi everybody. Thank you again, Rania.